And we are live on YouTube Friday night. I'm going to give it a few minutes here, and then we're going to take a few questions. This is your chance, right? From the horse's mouth, so to speak. We're here on Friday night on Crypto Reality YouTube, and we are going to be taking questions about field research, specifically about field research. Those burning questions. Hey, anything you can think of that you've been thinking about that has to do with what they are, how they live, how they manage to stay off our radar. Be thinking about it. Tonight's the night you want to ask those questions. Specifics about experiences that I've had, that we've had together, Melanie and I. Footage, breakdowns, questions about the technical aspects of what we do. Be thinking, this is the time. What's going on, guys? I see a few of you in here now. How you doing? Gone fishing. Oh, yeah, I'm dying to do that. Dave, B, Hoosier, what's happening? What's up, Trace? B, how you doing? So, yeah, tonight's the night, right? You guys can ask. Little background information. Been involved in the subject of cryptozoology since I was 11 years old. Thrust into it by simply moving to Florida. Equestrian community. We lived on a street with ranches. First week I was in the state of Florida, a ranch down the street from our house. One of the ranchers called the police in the morning. We were at the bus stop waiting to go to school. The police sped by us. We heard guns going off. And literally a giant hairy gray monster was attacking horses in a stall, in a barn, right down the street from my house. This is week one in Florida. I had my first eyewitness interview at 15. Studied the subject ever since. Conducted my first field expeditions in 2010, specifically for this. 2011, 2012, had encounters. My son was with me on my first expedition to Mayaka, had his first sighting on day one. It was reported, by the way, to the officials at the park. My first encounter was incredible. Giant man. Didn't see him, but he let me know he was there. Had a history of going into the field using common sense in our projects. Explained it all the way along, and we've been getting results. So if you have any questions tonight, now's the time, right? Battling the heat. Yes, the heat. You know, in those hot days, it's like, Andy, I got you, man. I got you. It is too hot to fish for us, right? But like in the heat, the bigger fish, they're looking for that hat. It's a good, middle of the day jigging. Some hyacinth down here, Lake Okeechobee, double-digit fish, close to 10 pounds, sitting under the hyacinth when the sun comes up. They're looking for that hat. Nice blue jig. Oh, yes. Good craw trailer on it. It's a recipe, man. Flipping those mats. Flipping mats, baby. I can't wait. I'm waiting for my elbow to get better. I'll be flipping mats again real soon. What's the biggest track you have found? Mel, that's probably 18, right?
Yeah, I would say
18 inches, a little more maybe. I think it was 18, and then the toes. But I'd have to go back and look at the footage. We found a lot of tracks. Biggest one, probably 18, between 18 and 19 inches, I'd say, is probably pretty accurate. We found several large tracks, but we found hundreds of tracks below that in the 16, 17, 14s, 13s, all the way down to the infant tracks. Perfect bell curve. And visually documenting all that stuff the whole time. So yeah, that's something that in and of itself was shocking. The reality, it's like, you think about it and you're like, well, they must have families. If there's one, there's probably a lot of them. But when you start to witness it, in reality, the gravity of it is profound. I'll just put it that way. And I think that even affected Melanie at one point. When we really started to realize what was going on, I think that's when we were coming to the conclusion, this is a humanitarian issue, man. It's human type feet we're finding out there. So humanitarian issue, but big tracks. Let's see what else we got. It's jumping. Is it true that Bigfoot will knock on your window to try to get you to come out so they can have a meal? I don't know, man. I've interviewed people and done investigations on properties. One in particular in the state of North Carolina where something was throwing things at the window and running by, clear, heavy footfalls coming down the driveway, the dirt driveway with the windows open and the screens, laying in bed, the homeowners, and you can hear the individual run past the house and slap the side of it, wood house. Cause a disturbance at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. Imagine that these kind of things happen, what you're describing. It's probably pretty rare. 7.5 to 8 inches at the widest point at the ball of the foot. Now, Brian just got when I was 18 and 7.25, somewhere in there. Big track, man. If you go to the community tab, on the homepage of Crypto Reality here on YouTube. And if you're on an iPad, you have to go to the desktop version. If you're on a cell phone, then you want to go to the channel. And when the main menu of home comes up, the communities tab should be there on the right-hand side. You may have to move it over a little bit. But if you click on that, you can see some of the tracks. Brian's 18-incher is in there, and that's from 3-4 weeks ago. Let's see what else. Yeah, I know, man. I know. Those, perfect time, right? We're gonna. This is my opinion, right? People who have tenures at universities have to be careful. That's the way it is, right? So when we talk about that, and Bill, you know this. You know how it is. I've talked to you on the phone about this, and you've experienced that yourself. So I get it, though. There's nothing more frustrating than contacting somebody who publicly displays an interest in the subject, who, is, intent on ignoring the reality of what's going on. Physical samples to test are physical samples. They are what they are. You can't create them. It's just what they are. They need to be tested. You know what I mean? So let's see what else. How many times have you been bluff charged or threatened, I guess? Be safe. Mel and I have been bluff charged at least once, right? The drone incident? Are you sleeping?
What's a bluff charge?
Oh, when he came running through the bushes, pushing the trees aside, trying to get at us when I flew the drone in.
Yeah.
That's one instance. Can you think of anything else?
Well, the other time I guess we weren't charged. Where we came upon him early in the morning, that was definitely
growling and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I was actually charged on 5 different days as I entered the area by myself. All 5 times. And all 5 times turned and ran. I was removed from the area by threatening behavior. And that is the area where, and you've seen a lot of the Sasquatch that are in that area. The last film, the 2 side by side in comparison, that last film we put out, those Sasquatch were filmed in the area that I was chased out of, that we were bluff charged for flying the drone in too close. One of them got off the ground. I believe it was a male because he was parting the trees at 60 feet in the air aside as he came through, and it freaked us out, man. That was the day that literally I think I was more concerned about getting out alive than I was actually shooting footage. So I think we ended up maybe 20 minutes after that, we were gone trying to get out of there. And we had to walk past the spot that they were actually bedded down in when the one got off the ground. We had to walk right through that area to get out. And it was uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable. I think I told Melanie, keep your eyes down and don't look to the right, because at that point there was a huge presence, and it was terrifying. Let's see what else we got. What's up, J Dude? Oh, buddy, man. We got J Dude in here, dude. What's up? Go fishing. It's too hot down here right now, man. It's killing me. You know, I got this elbow thing. Can't do it. Let's see. More questions. How was your first encounter? My first encounter was traumatizing. I was by myself. I had literally just talked to 2 different park officials about a mile away from where I had the encounter, less than an hour after I left their office. I had found a palm tree that was dragged from a tree line about 20 foot long, maybe, or something, 17 feet long, I guess. And it was dragged about 100 yards from a tree line, and it was thrown on top of a barbed wire fence that was about 8 feet tall, bordering a preserve. And I was trying to get in there to examine that. You could see where it was dragged. There were no mechanical tracks of any kind. There were footfalls and punch holes in the actual prairie, a long stride of where, you know, this thing was dragging it. My encounter happened in there about 35 minutes after I found that tree, about an hour after I had talked to the officials, and who clearly stated that it was ridiculous that I was asking about reports. You know what I mean? And this is having already spoken to several different people that I know, and having known people in the past from growing up here that have had encounters in the place. There's one on the BFRO. So I was highly irritated from that, you know, just learning. You know, I got into this and I thought, well, I'm going to talk to these people about it. I'm sure they're going to be forthright. You know, I didn't really understand how the subject is, well, first of all, how to broach the subject in a way that will make people feel comfortable about sharing if they have any knowledge, which was, you know, me. I was like a bull in a china shop. I just went right in there. Hey, what's going on? Let's talk about Bigfoot encounters. These people were like, what, man, who's this guy? You know what I mean? So learning that, a little tact, you know what I mean? So, but my encounter was right there. Guy screamed at me, found some snails that were crushed on a big rock, tracks leading up out of the water, tracks leading into the preserve, and went inside, found a tunnel into a 30-foot thick wall of brush that was orchestrated, made. It was approximately 80 inches high, 50 inches wide, and it had an arch on it. Like someone took some time to put this archway in there. As you went through, you could see where branches were twisted perfectly and vines were, you know, pinned back and woven into it. Fascinating thing to find. A little too surreal for me. Couldn't buy it, right? So I went in. Track right outside it, 17-inch track. And that was my first encounter, guy. I yelled a couple of calls, thinking it was possible, but not probable. And immediately, within 30 feet of me, a very large, and what I would describe as something that made, it sounded big, groaned like a man groans, but like it was a giant that groaned, and moved the brush in a way that sounded like it stood up as it was groaning, and then screamed at me 3 times. And I was freaking out, and then took off, and the bush started smashing about 30 feet from me and tearing up. And I thought it was getting me. So I turned and tried to run, and immediately was like all tangled up. But he was going the other way, and that was my first encounter. It was terrifying. I ran 400 yards out of that strip of swamp and forest canopy, all the way back to the car. I hood slid. I did a hood slide. I did a TJ Hooker, bro. I slid across the front of the hood onto the other side and was looking back like this because I thought it was coming. And a semi rolled by. because I was parked on the side of the road. It scared me to death, man. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize I left my fishing pole all the way back there. So I actually drove off, then I had to go back and get my fishing pole. Not good. Eye-opening, pissed me off because I just talked to those people. So yeah, man, thrust into this, the reality of what we have as a situation, a cryptozoological situation here, a biological situation, a zoological situation, a humanitarian issue here in South Florida, where there is very little dry land left that's capable of being developed without passing legislation, right? Because they've got it all roped off, right? And so what happens, what we see the pattern is that essentially they'll lock off a piece of land and call it a preserve until something the public is unaware of happens, at which point they sell it off to the highest bidder. Honestly, I think the controlling factor in when that status changes is right behind me. I think they're trying to funnel them into very specific spots. We've seen this in our research, evidence of this. Okay, let's see what else we got. I'm not missing anybody's questions for once. Do you ever see other cryptids with the Sasquatch? No, I never have. In fact, I've only ever seen individuals, though I have, and my wife has caught multiple individuals in the same areas, visible ones anyway. Like, you know, we can guess on stuff and you can get into the whole pareidolia thing. We are hell-bent on not allowing that in our work. And we go through great pains many times, like this week, eliminating footage that while is extremely valuable to the research process and forwarding the research, is simply not going to make the cut that we were standard that we have. We put that on ourselves. And it's important that in my opinion, that all researchers do that. It's better to wait. You know what I mean? It's now if they're there, they're there. It's not my problem. The public is largely uneducated on what these things can and do in fact look like. It's interesting to me that the people who know what they look like are oftentimes the first individuals to comment and contact me, and that individuals from government agencies have contacted us about what's in our films. So people who know, they know what's up. Let's see what else we got. Why won't they lure a human out for an easy meal? Who says they don't, James? They may do that. They may, in fact, do that, James. In fact, I don't doubt it. I am definitely not one of these people who believes that befriending this species is a possibility. I'm just not. In some extreme circumstance where there's an injury and it's a young one or something, or maybe there's a situation that's happened in the past, that may have happened, but we're studying something that, while clearly displays certain human traits, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and even physical traits that would line up with a human type being, they're hominoids and they're wild. They're wild. In fact, from my studies, and this is coming from a die-hard, they're human guy, and still pushing these types of rights, they have more in common with animals in the way they live than they do with humans, and they probably always will, with this level or degree of indifference that they have for humans. It's just what it is. You know what I mean? And we see variations, and I am an eyewitness of the variations, and my wife will attest to that, and really all of our viewers, all of you guys are. Because you've seen the variations in the soft tissue, right? The bone structure. You've got some that appear to be more human and have more human-like noses. And the hooded nose is a factor in almost everything we catch, I think, if not everything. And then you have the other end of the spectrum. And I personally have seen one that just looked like a giant Cro-Magnon. He had human hair, long human hair and everything. He was just, really, really built, really big and really hairy. And then I've seen what looks like a 7.5 to 8 foot chimpanzee with a pointy head and gray skin, like something out of a horror film. You know what I mean? Whitish gray skin, not gray, but whitish gray. Strikingly terrifying is the way I would describe their skin color. It looks like something out of a horror movie, what you see. And this is no joke. This is the side that, while there are types that are in our films and that, we've witnessed firsthand that resemble the Patterson footage, we're simply not seeing that across the board. What we're seeing is not something that compares apparently in their makeup of genes, in their genomic makeup. And I think there are studies that have explanations for this kind of stuff. The Ketchum study has some interesting explanations and data on this stuff. I know Dr. Ketchum is constantly working still on this kind of thing. So the genomic thing, I think, she'd be an interesting person to talk to about it. I think that my perspectives differ from a lot of researchers out there in that I don't find the abnormal anomalies that we experience to have anything to do with the giant monkeys running around in the bushes. You know what I mean? Or the giant humanoids, because there seem to be these types together. And I think that's something that escapes the general public because most of them have seen what they've seen. If they've seen a monkey one, it's a monkey. If they've seen a humanoid, it's a human looking thing. If they've experienced, emotional intelligence and interaction with the species, and this is across the eyewitness catalog, man, you'll see these variations in description. I think that's one of the things that science has a hard time with, despite the fact that the type specimen catalog for hominoids clearly shows a great deal of variation. And I think that we're seeing that. I think that last film, the Demansky skull from Georgian Russia, Russian Georgia, or whatever way you want to put it, that skull is the closest thing that I've seen to one particular type that we have here that we've caught on film 100 times. I've seen that skull over and over and over and over and over again. I've seen that skull with my own 2 eyes. And that's not the human type looking one with the human hair. He just looked like a big, giant, whitish gray skinned monster guy. You know what I mean? And while all of this to the average person may seem ridiculous, the average person has no experience with any of this. And so I can understand that. I can understand that, a lot of the things that people do that I don't engage in, I don't understand. You know what I mean? And I think that it does take a bit of investigation and looking into to even begin to consider a lot of the things that I'm saying. Or you could just watch the Bigfoot Researchers Journal and you can see it all. You know what I mean? You don't have to take my word for it. But in looking at the situation, I think one of the things that, and this is something I wanted to mention, there are a lot, I've been doing a little research. There are a lot of people in a lot of different places here in the United States engaged, and I salute you, engaged in serious long-term research now. Much respect, guys, because that's the only way this is going to happen, right? See, we're doing what science will have to do, public science, right, will have to do if they want to document the species. Anything outside of the lucky incident that they get a hold of a body and certain authorities probably don't find out about it. But if they're going to actually validate, let's say the average biologist who's not only skeptical, but he's just in rabid denial. We'll say that. There's no possible way this could exist, even though hominoid skulls and skeletons are real, and they've been real, and they are now, and eyewitnesses are right there saying, why are you disrespecting me? In the end, they will have to engage in long-term field research. This placation on television is nothing. it's hit or miss with that, right? That doesn't mean it can't happen. It can, and it has on a few occasions, but to understand what's out there, it takes long-term research. And so once again, if you're doing it, let's chat. Contact me, cryptoreality.us@gmail.com. Let's get together. Let's talk. Okay, so let's take another question, man. Let's see what we got. Seen any good movies or shows lately? Come on, man. I'm a connoisseur, dude. What do you want? What are you looking for? Let's see. What did I watch lately? I'll tell you what. I watched the Olympic scandal. That documentary has disappeared off of Netflix, off of cable television. That was horrifying. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. As far as movies go, yeah, what did we just watch? God, my brain. Mel, what did we just watch? I just finished it. What was that? It was a good movie. Anyway, yeah, it was a good movie. What was it?
Boy, man.
Yeah, we're both a loss right now.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. It's like eating me up now. So,
we watched.
Oh, I know what we watched. We watched the science fiction Fox News channel and the science fiction MSNBC News channel. You can almost not take your eyes off what's going on. If you turn it on, you're done. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't even seem, it's surreal what's happening right now. It is a trip, man. And you know me, I don't typically buy into most of what the media says. Like I just know how things work there. And so, but it's interesting though. All right, questions. Let's get back to it, man. Mark, you have some good undeniable evidence. Thank you. I appreciate that. My wife appreciates that. Let's see what else we got, man. Come on. I don't see him. Do you think they're capturing these things? Okay, this is Andy. Andy, you already got like 5 in there, man. Any theories that the ill feeling you got from the drones could have been a powerful electromagnetic force? Yes. Absolutely, BX. BX, thanks for the compliments too, buddy. We decided, I watched your little podcast the other day, just to let you know. And, in the beginning, we decided no censorship. That was an active decision. And we knew we were going to get crucified for it. You know what I mean? But we're not trying to be something we're not. Anybody who tells you different is full of shit. And anybody who really knows me and is being honest will tell you that. I'm just as abrasive in person. Okay, so let's see. Electromagnetic force. Yes. That's the short answer. I'm not going to get into that right now and the rest of it because there are that's need to know, buddy. Well, what's going on with that is need to know. That's what I'm going to say right now. We're working on something. Do you think they're capturing these things and moving them? Yes, I do in certain situations. I think that happened on the west coast of Florida about 8 months ago. Somewhere in there. I think they've been doing it since the 1970s. Omega, what's up? Thanks for the question, BX. Okay, what else we got? Perseverance. Right on, Bill. Here's to those who persevere. You know what that is? That's some good iced tea is what that is. Nothing like some good homemade iced tea. Let's see. Will from West Palm. What's up, Will? How you doing? What's going on with that? Do you think they migrate? Here in Florida? No, I don't. There's absolutely no evidence that in any of what we found. What we found is sedentary groups. They pick a house and they live in it. That's what it is. And there's very little, based on what we've seen in the last 5 years, that can get them to leave. When they pick an area, they're in that area. I think the area itself is large. However, I think they favor certain spots, and I think it has a lot to do with being comfortable most of the time. I think temperature regulation, body temperature regulation is the primary aspect of their existence here in the state of Florida, and we use that and exploit it regularly. That's right. Wonder why. I'm going to take your advice on that. Okay. Let's see. What's going on there? Well, we got all kind of crazy stuff going on here. Huh? All right, I'm looking for questions. Any update on the craft out in the field? Are you guys still seeing them? Yes. We didn't see them the last time we were out, but it was heavy cloud cover. And it wasn't in a situation for good viewing. Do y'all hear turkey-like whistles in your research area? When we hear turkeys, it's turkeys. We do hear whistles. We do hear pss, 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 that kind of thing, back and forth. We hear all kinds of stuff like that. The craft, I don't want to get into that right now, but we are definitely working on that. We're working on that. Bob Lazar, excellent. Just watched that the other night. Terrifying. Excellent. The Area 51 rave party. Is that what they're calling it now? It was like storm the gates. Now it's the Area 51 rave party. That's probably what it's going to end up being, is what it is. That actually would be kind of fun, right? Until they showed up with their choppers and their, oh God. Mark and Scott, y'all need to get together on the next interview, please. Which Scott are you referring to? Are these skunk apes interdimensional? You're not embarrassing yourself, Jay. I'm sorry it took me a minute to get to this, but I'm here, okay? The short answer for that is we have never witnessed anything like that. I know that, there's a contingency of individuals out there who will continue to put that kind of information out irresponsibly, if you ask me. The reality is that in 5 years, we've never had anything like that couldn't be explained perfectly, and especially nothing that would suggest any kind of interdimensionality or whatever. I look at all that stuff, and what I see is I don't understand what I'm dealing with, and I don't understand what I'm experiencing, and that kind of thing. Eyewitnesses, I've never actually heard an eyewitness come out and say that they saw one go into a portal. I've never heard that. You know what I mean? I've had people say they had glowing eyes, and then asked them, did they have a flashlight in their hand? And the answer was yes. And let me ask you a question. Were you actually using it the way you should to see what you're looking at? And they were like, yes. And I'm like, well, you're telling me the Sasquatch's eyes were glowing. You know what I mean? Right. Okay, so Omega's question. The generati is a bit irritated. So let me see what's going on. Oh, I did answer it. I got him. That was a while back. Okay. The interdimensional thing is pop. It's like pop culture, right? So what happens is somebody tries to research in a slipshod manner, or they put a lot of effort into it, and they don't get really any data that would suggest anything rational. And then someone starts with, well, maybe they're interdimensional. If I remember these debates, well, maybe they can. And there was a time when you could see how it all started, the flow with this nonsense, right? It was maybe, and then soon enough of those maybes become, well, this is just what it is. and somebody goes on a show and says something, and in the end, it's simply not documented. You know what I mean? Those kind of things aren't documented. And while most people say Sasquatch isn't documented, they're not aware that it has been on many occasions. And I think what we're seeing here, and this is true with like a lot of stuff, is people relying on belief instead of what's going on in the data, wherever it comes from, investigating it, looking at it, listening, and trying to learn. I think that it's just a lot easier to dismiss. And where the interdimensional and the invisible and all that kind of stuff is, to explain, why Sasquatch is hard to capture on film, it may explain it away for some people. It sounds ridiculous to the scientific community, and it sounds ridiculous to eyewitnesses who saw it walk away. It's like, we've had so many experiences and seen these things do things that suggest they don't have the ability to, poof in and out of reality the way these people suggest. I just find it, I find it illogical when one considers the fossil trail and eyewitness testimony, and then field research from reliable individuals. And there are many reliable individuals who are both eyewitnesses and actively providing answers that are accurate with these things. You know what I mean? You just have to look. It takes time to learn about this. And, if you don't really have any interest in it, it's probably not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like fascination, an entertainment, that kind of thing. And I think that's a shame. But really, pop culture is what has covered this subject, and it's pop culture that is dictating perspective at this point. What we try to do is we try to provide more accurate data on it that you can see. Like if I'm going to say, listen, Sasquatch is achromatically colored. This is not just a theory. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and we provided data that they have gray skin and black hair, or black skin and black hair. That's hair that is in the achromatic color spectrum. Black all the way to white. That's achromatic, right? So that's not abnormal for non-human primates. That's not abnormal in the great ape family, right? Gorillas and chimps, that kind of thing. Black, gray skin, this kind of thing. Black skin. So we're providing documentation for that you can see that they are achromatically colored. And then we come to find out that the achromatic color spectrum, when introduced into a diffused sunlight situation, will actually absorb and retransmit the diffused sunlight. So if it's bouncing off green plants, the light will pick up some of that green as it comes through the canopy, hit that gray skin, that light gray skin, or that black skin, and it'll have a greenish tone to it. And we've shown this. I was attacked on multiple occasions by people who say that I say Bigfoot are green. I never said Bigfoot are green. I said they're achromatically distorted. And if people took the time to look that up, they would understand that it's the canopy light that's bouncing on their oily skin. They don't use chemicals to bathe. They're natural. They're wild. So, of course, they have really oily skin. I myself have seen this. Many eyewitnesses have described the really tight, shiny skin. It appears to be very tight, shiny. I've seen that. It looks chrome in direct sunlight, And looking at these things, there are basic understandings as a direct result of the failures and ineptitudes of cryptozoologists for the last 70 years that have provided popular culture the opportunity to twist the truth and the data, make the data up, assign ridiculous theories. And so one of the goals for us was to demonstrate that cryptozoology is supposed to be a field science and begin to develop how to do this. And trial and error, failure, success. What did we do when we were successful? Let's duplicate that experiment. And let's see if we can repetitively get those results that we deem successful. And lo and behold, you continue filtering through your experimentation. You begin to find these successful theories, more successful, that produce the data that's more conclusive and solid. This is what it is, right? Does it lead to encounters? Does it lead to tracks? Does it lead to physical evidence? Then it's theory you need to continue to practice. Do not stray. Do not pass go. As a field researcher, we've been developing these things, right? And many people who've come before us have tried to develop these theories and failed to back it up. This is something we did not want to do, and that's why, but it took time, right? This whole thing is, it's one of those things where as you go along, you learn. This is what study is. You're trying what doesn't work. You don't know that. This is unexplored territory. So you're trying something and then it doesn't work. You have to switch it up. You have to change it up. Using common sense theory is what really is working for us. If I had to be out there, how would I have to exist? It's hot. What do I need to do? I need to find some shade. You know what I mean? Temperature, regulating my body temperature. And so we use that. We find the coolest places in a given area. This area has a history of sightings. Well, it's 96 degrees today. Where would I be sitting? Let's find that place. Let's look on satellite. It's going to be near water. Cooler temperatures are going to be near water. If there's water with all this sunlight, there has to be shade to keep it out of that evaporation cycle, right? So make the evaporation cycle stretch out longer would be a better way to put it, because most of the creek beds down here do go almost dry, if not dry, at some point in the year. All of these things are leading down a path that is producing the data that you're viewing. And here's the thing. You got to keep going. The puzzle, it doesn't, like, suddenly there's no last piece. You know what I mean? We can always learn more. And so where does it lead now? You see where we're at. We keep you abreast of that situation. Let's see what we have. I appreciate that, Chris P. Have you found different locations with clear hair samples? Yes. Yes. Not to the degree with the number of clear hairs, but we are dealing with our first light colored individual. This thing's beige blonde, one of them, and one of them appears to have like an amber color. The clear hairs are incredible. The degree, the number, the sheer number in those samples that Brian's been getting. Incredible. Central Florida. I have samples from 3 years in a row, members campouts, and the initial incursions into Central Florida on invitation from a hunter got us to go up there. We have hair samples that include clear hair samples as well. Many highly translucent hairs, but a few of the clear hair samples. But these individuals are black in coloration, and I think therefore less clear hairs. There are people in here right now that have hair samples from the members campouts from Central Florida that were with us, that witnessed the activity from those, for really the first night. The first night was incredible. In February 2018, that was incredible. Absolutely incredible. We had them in the campsite at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, moving around the tents. The members were shifty at that time in the morning when that was going on in their tents. Ken M, I appreciate that. I doubt that's ever going to happen, though. Let's see. I know, right? Who's going in to get it after it's tranked? Well, that's like the old question when we were kids and they would hunt gators. They would hunt them from a john boat. And the first time I went, I'm like thinking, there's no fishing pole to snag this thing after it's shot. What's going to happen? And then the guy jumped off front of the boat and went down and got it and swam up with this 10-foot gator. And, eyes all across the water, man. Floodlights keeping them back. You know what I mean? While we're retrieving the carcass. Interesting, man. On a permit, of course. That was back when they had a lottery for gators every year. I don't know if they still, maybe they still do. Let's see what else, man. What else? EMP interference in electrical and body. Far out, man. That's interesting, Robert. Cover water food. Cover water food. Cover water food. And here's the thing, right? Cover water food in areas down here, the development is into every single nook and cranny. There's some little portion developed. Within those areas, cover water food near human activity. There's a good pattern for you. Get on it. Campgrounds. Watch them closely. Do you ever think there'll be Bigfoot disclosure? And if so, what would happen afterwards? I do think that it's going to happen. I think that, I said this a few times, man. It's not like they can come out and go, yeah, man, there's this huge species of hairy hominoid running around the woods. We don't know shit about it. They can't do that. Maybe they know everything. But I believe the management program has not succeeded to the full extent that they want it to. But I honestly do believe that when it does, yes, they're going to tell us. And what will happen afterwards? Well, I'll say this. Exactly what's happening now. Exactly what's happening now. Because the one thing you can count on in America is very little changes, right? Let's think about this. Very little. And there's a reason for that, right? The stability. And I think that ultimately it's going to have to be, I was asked this question by a government consultant in 2015. He said, Mark, if you had $4 million, how would you disclose that Sasquatch is real to the general public here in America? And I was like, if I had $4 million and that was what you wanted me to do, and I laid this out for this guy, never talked to me again. Took my plan and left. And essentially the plan was that they need to start beginning to reverse perspective, right? In very subtle ways in the programming. Very much the same ways that they've implemented the perspectives, the current perspectives of the general public. And this would involve archaeology. It would involve all of the disciplines concerned in past, present, and future of the existence of hominoids. And that is the way that they need to cover this, right? It's going to have to be very simple. And the way I laid it out, just like that. You have to begin implementing programming that's going to start educating people on the reality of hominoid existence in the past. And then over a 10-year period, you begin bringing that information forward in the programming. Eyewitnesses are starting to be taken a little more seriously on these television shows. I can pretty much tell you that if it happens, this is how it's going to happen. And then it will culminate into a very stark, traumatic event. And it'll be broadcast. And it may end up being that it's a foreign government that actually does it first. It may end up being that. I wouldn't put it past China, believe it or not. I wouldn't put it past China. I wouldn't put it past Canada. You know what I mean? So, but I don't think anything's going to change. I think that that's fear-based pop culture. The logging industry, my stock's in the logging industry. You know what I mean? All that horse shit. They're going to be killing them everywhere. Yeah, because that happens every day now. You know what I mean? Like, give me a break, dude. Well, they'll know they're out there. Yeah, and they'll also know what they are and what they're capable of fully from the U.S. government. And they'll also have some type of an emergency, Endangered Species Act put on them, which means very much the same thing as it'll be like a moratorium on the white sharks, right? And I know someone who got in trouble for killing a great white shark here in the state of Florida unnecessarily, right? It wasn't self-defense, just put it that way. But it's the same thing, right? I mean, in the end, it's penalty. It's like this, right? Law is reactionary, right? It's the act happens. You're never going to change the fact that the act happens before the consequence. You know what I mean? People will pay consequences. So I do believe that. If this comes out, this will be a necessity, you know? The habitat, oh my God, the this, the that. It's already set up, dude. It's already set up. Teddy Roosevelt's been instrumental in that from the beginning. You know what I mean? He started that whole thing. And they just picked up the mantle, and they're doing the right thing, man. It's like this, right? They're doing the right thing. And I honestly believe this, right? This is my take on it, right? If there is a nuisance alligator that's eating people's pets in a civilized area, I mean, this is a hypothetical scenario, and yet it's happened tens of thousands of times in South Florida. It happens hundreds of times every year here in South Florida, right? Especially now. You know, gators are back. There's a gator and a half for every citizen in the state of Florida, something like that. It's like there's a gator for every person, right? Millions. If it's a nuisance gator and it's eating pets, or it reaches that range 10 foot and above, you're on the menu. Keep it in your lake, dude. Keep it in your lake if it's private. Be careful. But in the community where there are children and pets and people want to live safely, these things find their way in there. And they're subsequently removed and either sold onto the market for skins and meat, and there are trappers that can do various things with these licenses they get. And so in looking at these situations, I agree with the fact that if there are these things out there in certain areas and they are not so much the nuisance aspect, but if they're a danger to the general public, I'm glad that there's a military unit that's willing to go in and risk their neck for us so that so-and-so's wife can still like exist, you know, without having her feet broke off with her shoes still in them. You know what I'm saying? They're finding feet in some of these areas with shoes still on them, broken off, snapped off, not cut off, snapped off. Like, you know, whatever it was, didn't understand what the shoe was and just wanted to get rid of it quick. So it just broke the leg and put the shoes there. There are strange things going on. People coming up missing. David Politis and the hunting thing. You know, there's books of his for years, but these stories have been coming. We hear about it. We hear about it all the time. You know what I mean? I'm glad that they're taking care of this. You know what I mean? Because I can tell you right now, there's nothing I can do to handle that situation other than throw out some ideas to a government consultant. That's what I did. I was asked, so I gave it to him. He communicated with me for about a year about my research, and then went away after he asked me that question. Mel actually witnessed that last 6 months of communication with that guy. Turns out we didn't know who he was. We started looking around and checking him out, and it turned out he worked for the U.S. government. He was a biological consultant, and that's what it is. He's probably a member now. I don't know. You know what I mean? So. You are in a prime area, Jay. Really, southeastern Ohio. But yes, Pennsylvania and all that stuff up in there. Let me tell you something, Jay. Where the big deer are, the big guy is. You're in good territory for that. What were you suggesting about the DNA of the side pics you posted earlier? What I was suggesting was what the data suggests. And what the data suggests, and I realize it's difficult for people to see in cases where they don't know what hominoids can and do in fact look like, but at the end of the day, there's two shot many miles apart and years apart, and it's not the same individual, and yet they have the same basic bone structure. They look like a cross between a chimpanzee and a man. A hominoid is a better way to put it, a relict hominoid, something from the past, that exaggerated bone structure. And yet, the one I saw had human hair and looked just like, you know, a really giant guy with a, you know, he just looked like a giant, man. Picture a giant, and there you go. You know what I mean? Gray hair all over him, uncut, all in his face like a mop. Coming down, you know, the chest was immense, the muscles, the biceps were gigantic. This dude was big. He had a big vein running down one of the biceps, and I mean a big vein. I was like, damn, this is not real. That's what you say when you see it. This is not happening. This can't be happening. You know what I mean? Let's see. I know I'm missing a few now, boy. Do you think these things are responsible for any of the missing 411? Yes, I do. In certain situations. It's my opinion. I think so. I do. I think it's highly likely. There you go. I think it's highly likely that at some point, Native American folklore, Jay, talks about warring with these creatures over territory, talks about hunting down individuals that took children or females from the tribe into the mountains, kidnapping situations. What do we see? The missing 411. In many of those situations, there appears to be some type of nefarious activity. Is it kidnapping? Some eyewitnesses say yes. I think one situation actually had eyewitnesses, and I could be wrong, it may be more, but one of the books I read, I think it was the first or second one that Dave put out, there was a situation, I believe I'm correct in saying this, that witnesses a mile or so away witnessed a giant hairy dude with a kid or a woman on his shoulder. And they were interviewed by the FBI and told, no, you didn't see that. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. It's been a few years, man. It's been a few years. I would check it out. I would check it out for yourself. Somebody come back and fill me in on how close I was on that. When did you say we were starting the main expo? Really looking forward to that. Next month at some point. We're shooting for next month at some point. Troy. This could possibly change a lot of scientific human evolution. This is a statement from the chat room. SS, what's up? Yeah, I think that's probably, you can barbecue gator, brown dwarf, and let me tell you something. It is delish. It sounds gross, but if I was to lay a good piece of my grilled Cajun spiced gator tail on a plate with a lobster tail, I guarantee you'd say, wow, both of those were phenomenal. Probably like a lobster better. Two very distinct things, but it's delicious. And anytime I'm down that way, I make sure I get a big basket of it. You know what I mean? I personally like it grilled. I like it grilled with Cajun butter sauce on it. Whew, man, is it good. And some lemon. Hit it with that lemon. Oh, man. I would say that it's very much like shrimp. It's reptile, so I can tell you if you've never had it, it's very much like, it's like a cross between shrimp and chicken is the way I would put it. Shrimp and chicken together. You know, it has a little bit different taste than shrimp, but the textures, you know what I mean? The texture. Nowadays, like that rubber chicken you buy at the store, that chicken breast that's like rubber, when you cook it, you're like, what am I eating? I don't know if that's genetic chicken or what it is, but it's terrible. Have you looked into where they lay down or call home? Yes, that's where we study. We don't wander around aimlessly in places. In 2015, Melanie and I spent an entire year hiking, and we would do between 7 and 14 miles a trip, at least twice a week. And I would say, I would venture a guess that we hiked the length of the state of Florida in 2015, and we ironed out 4 key spots. And they will not leave those spots. They have not left those spots. And you've seen the Sasquatch that inhabit those spots. And that's one of the reasons we can provide this information. In 2015, we put in the necessary work to find out where we could start studying. The problem with Bigfoot research isn't so much that they're hard to document as it is they're hard to find initially. You can't study Sasquatch if you're not studying Sasquatch. So the most important aspect of conducting Bigfoot research is to get it right to begin with. And you have to find a viable area, and then you have to document that they are in there to some capacity to where it warrants further investigation. If you can't do that, you can't begin to study that. You'd be studying hiking and the environment. You know what I mean? The good thing, like I said earlier, research in Florida, they're sedentary. They appear to be sedentary, man. They're in the same areas. I have had encounters for the last 5 years in the exact same areas, at times within 25 feet of my last encounter, certainly within 1,000 yards to 3,000 yards of these areas. And there's a good reason they're in these areas. They're viable hunting spots. Humans have a tendency to hunt just outside of the areas they like to hunt. I really honestly believe they understand what and how we do what we do when we're in their environments, to the extent that they can position themselves to take advantage of what we do when we're in their environments. Yeah. They're intelligent, man. And, man, they're primitive, right? So you get the other side of it, right? You get the, I'm calm thing, but I can snap on a dime. You know what I mean? And this is, if you do the wrong thing in our research area, in a situation where they're close by, they'll let you know. Every time you do something like that, if you do the wrong thing, if you offend them, is the way I'll put it. If you offend them, they will let you know. And, man, we've done that intentionally on several occasions. In the beginning, especially, it was my goal to do that because I wanted to make sure it was what we were actually experiencing was Sasquatch. And the best way I figured to do that was to piss off one of these males. And so I attempted to do that on multiple occasions. And on multiple occasions, I was rewarded with consequences, period, to the degree that I was willing to back off. So there was emotional intelligence in there. You know what I mean? There was, don't push it. That was the message. Every time, don't push it. There was also evidence of playful kind of stuff. Getting hit in the back of the neck with a slobber-covered pine cone that had every seed eaten off of it. And I mean soaking wet, dude. This thing was nasty, and it was on my neck, and it was a lot. It was a lot. It was like, I don't want to say it was like, Ghostbusters when Bill Murray was like laying on the ground and he's like got slimed or whatever, but it was nasty. There was a huge swath, and it was like, oh my God. And, we were looking, and I realized what it was, because I thought it was like a bug or maybe a wet tree frog. Kind of, you know what I mean? It's like if you live in South Florida, the other night, man, I walked in my living room, stepped on a tree frog in my living room. We've had one outside the house that sits outside the house, and when you walk out, he jumps on you. There's not a visitor to our house that won't tell you this tree frog was there. Many of our house guests, and both Melanie and I and my mother have had this thing jump on us. And the girls, man, they walk outside. This guy ended up in the house. He got in finally. He was trying to get in. I knew it. He would turn. You open the door, he turns like he's going to come. You shut the door real quick. Like, damn. He's jumped at the door and hit it several times. I can't explain it, but he got stepped on. It wasn't pretty. And I was barefoot. And it was gross. And I didn't understand what just happened because it was dark at 1:30 in the morning. And then I turned the light on, and I almost screamed because it was horrifying. You know what I'm saying? How is this thing in the house? Well, I was asking myself, you know what I mean? How is this thing in the house? And there it was. Yeah. And then he ended up in the dog dish. He was in the dog dish. And that's how he got evacuated from the premises. He was in the dog dish the next day. I was like, damn. And I told Scott and Melanie, I said, I hope you don't find a flat tree frog in the living room. But I don't even want to face it. You know what I mean? I didn't even want to face it. Because I love those things, man. You know what I mean? You get where we live on the border of a huge state park. And it's heavily wooded. And last year they reported officially to the U.S. Department of Interior their first Sasquatch sighting. And we got that from the ranger's mouth at the gate. So, and here it is at the end of our street, this huge, huge place. And so we get wildlife. There were koi in the pond, in the backyard, a little pond. Until the hawks, the peregrines, came from the park 300 yards away and started picking them off. And I've been in the backyard when all of a sudden, boom, there's a hawk and it explodes on the pond surface. And I watched him trying to fly off with his koi. I'm like thinking, there goes a $60 fish, Next time it'll be goldfish if it's fish at all. All right, let's see. Meandering chatter. Come on, man. What do we got? I know you got more questions than me. I probably missed 40 of them. In regards to the 411, there's a docuseries called Smiley Face Killer that talks about the cases where people go missing and show up weeks later in the same spot that was searched before. And that's fascinating. Definitely check that out. They may be Gen 1, non-agricultural human beings. I think there's a possibility that if that term exists, they could be that. I don't know. I haven't had the pleasure of interviewing anybody that would use that terminology. Not that they don't exist. So I don't know. Let's see. You get a lot of reports out of Virginia. Government disclosure. Thumbs up. You think it's all financial? It could be. It could be. We overcome a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? And really, man, I mean, financial. 1% has 90% of it, 99% of it. Like, what are they going to do? Lose 1%? I mean, shit, the $15 minimum wage thing's probably going to do that. You know what I mean? Feet in shoes washing ashore on the West Coast for years. They've never been able to figure it out. Canada. I'll bet you publicly they've never been able to figure out T. But I think we both know they know exactly what's going on with the feet. Russia and China might beat us to the punch. You never know, man. All right. When did you say you were starting the main expedition? Got that already. Let's move down. I'm going to answer these damn questions. How many different feet have they found? We're asking that question. The need for that answer exists. Can you believe the world that you live in? I want you to think about the fact that you're asking that question. Think about that. And let's talk about the reality of monsters. Okay? Yes, all respect, hominoid species. Those that don't have much. All right, let me ask you a question. What happens to a human being or an animal that has very little interaction with man? Do some research, and you'll find hostility is one very common and quickly gone to expression. How big do they get, guys? We don't know. We know they get immense. I heard the term beastly huge from my son. And that was in my ACA. That's not even the Pacific Northwest. And I think there is a difference between the Sasquatch that are down here that do not have to brachiate uphill. Mountains. Mountains will invariably produce a more substantial individual. It does not matter what species it is. There's a reason grizzly bears are badasses. You know what I mean? Where are black bears? Primarily, right? Not that there aren't mountains here, but in the South, there's a difference between the black bears here and the black bears you find, say, in Appalachia and that kind of thing. So I think we're dealing with the same thing. I think it's simple. I think, it's the use of muscle groups intensified in these mountainous regions will produce an individual that has very little regard for anything or its feelings, right? They're just huge. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Yeah, sightings and interactions are increasing exponentially as awareness increased exponentially over the last 14 to 15 years. Travel Channel started it rolling. Discovery Channel was like, damn, we got this little travel channel we just started outdoing us with Bigfoot shows. That was the end of it right there. So public awareness, the Discovery Channel family of networks, and public awareness has increased, man. You know what I mean? So we're getting this, it got me back into it. You know what I'm saying? People they're more aware now. That's what it is. You know what I mean? It's just awareness has increased. So here we are. Gator is so good. You're right. Gator and lobster and cold beer. Look at him. He's going there. Nice IPA. Do it, man. Do it. Where are we at? Since evolution is okay, yeah. It could be. You never know. Why they're lying on the highest levels. Character defects. I think there may have been some very good reasons for temporarily holding or withholding information from the general public in the 40s. But, you know, that National Security Act and what it is also concealing, to me, I look at that and I say, you know, there's a few individuals that have a great deal of information about things that could change the dynamic of this entire planet. Dichotomies all over, you know what I mean? It's like all these things would change. And I look at it and it's like, you know, it's unfortunate that those individuals are also involved or are the 1% we talked about earlier. You know, what are we looking at here? What are we looking at? What are we looking at? We're looking at you don't matter. That's what we're looking at. And that needs to change, you know? And I think that the more education we provide on this, the greater understanding people will have, the greater the awareness. And I just want to make sure that I do my job the right way and have been from day one and will continue to do that. And nobody who's worked with me will tell you any differently, man. You know what I mean? People can come out with us once and have some kind of an opinion or something like that. And some people have had that. The shit scared out of them and didn't want to do this anymore. And well, if there's nothing to it, and then why is it that, you know, you absolutely don't want to do this anymore? Why is it that the color was not anywhere in your face when the encounter was happening? You know what I mean? Like, why is it that, you know, you help me cast tracks if there's nothing to this? Why, you know, what really is going on? When you look at these kind of things, it's, you know, man, I look at this and I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm pissed. The reality of it is I think everybody should be pissed about this, because what it really, really does represent is something that should be core understanding for our existence. This is a basic core understanding. And I know that there are other aspects of what's being concealed that should be core understandings. And I think that really the controlled burn that happens, you know, I was referring to how the perspectives were developed on, you know, the Sasquatch subject and through programming and whatnot. And in looking at this, it's the other subjects, the extraterrestrial issue, ancient history, the things that we have endured as like people who can think are ridiculous and the nonsense. But I think that that's a part of the controlled burn to fill us in on what's going on and help us to understand that there's nothing we can do about what they're doing. It's like, look, this is what's happening. And ultimately, it represents a threat. If we can't stop this, it's a threat at one time or another. You know what I mean? It could be, and maybe it is already. And there's evidence based on eyewitness testimony that other phenomenon are a threat. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of different stuff. Many perspectives on that issue, the extraterrestrials. Some people, depending on their background, if it's a religious background, they'll tell you they're demons. There are scholars with degrees in physics that will tell you extraterrestrials exist, but they are demons. Christian theologians with degrees in physics that work for the U.S. government. Chuck Missler. Chuck Missler has an incredible amount of data. Although I don't agree with his perspective that they are demons. I just don't. You know what I mean? I think that if you look at the Bible, the description of an extraterrestrial fits that. I think that his perspective as a Christian theologian is accurate as a Christian theologian. So really, it comes down to terms. What terms do you understand? Because the meanings are really the same. You know what I mean? People will argue, Christians will argue that there's no such thing as extraterrestrials, and yet, what is Christ if not? You know, so when you look at it, the whole thing, where is heaven? You know, so and it's a term. It's not an insult. You know what I mean? And I think that in the terms of what's going on is where things get lost. And we have to begin to understand those things if we're ever going to, like, you know, accept what really is. And I think it's unfortunate that many people have come and gone not having a full understanding that even these things are real. This has to change, man. This is like an entire species, man, of upright walking being, and could really potentially, I mean, if science is all about the truth, if science is all about the history of man, if archaeology is all about that, if biologists are all about biology, the biology of planet Earth, if zoologists are all about zoological species that exist in the wild, if forensic examination, forensic wildlife sciences degrees and people in that academic community are so interested in what their discipline pertains to, why are we having these conversations and why are these questions being asked in here? You can't believe the lie as an eyewitness. You've already seen it. I've seen it. These people have character defects, and this is what it comes down to when we talk about all of this, National Security Act, all these things. There was a good reason to temporarily conceal this type of information from the general public. But to keep it that way for as long as it's been, knowing what's going on, is it so terrifying? Yes, that's what it is. The Bigfoot thing. Man, there's a giant species of hominoid that runs around the wilderness. They don't want shit to do with you. Or they would have already had something to do with you. In some cases, unfortunate cases, they do have something to do with human beings in a very bad and violent way. You know what I mean? But so do dogs, squirrels, hot dogs, toilets, bears, wilderness stuff, alligators. And so management programs have been put in place to protect the general public. Control the species so that the general public can exist in these environments and enjoy it. Keep the satin on the walls of the cage, right? Just look at it. That's all you got to do. Just look at it. How are you able to spot these creatures in the videos? How long does it take you to break down snippets of film? Must be maddening. In the beginning it was, because we had a lot to learn. In the beginning, it was maddening. It was impossible. It was mind-numbing, the hours that I put in. 100+ hours a week consistently. 2 years straight. 20,000 hours in 2 years. 22,000 hours in 2 years in my research. Full time and then some. But we learned a lot. The experimentation process, man, we were cramming. Every time we went in, we had 3-4 experiments going on at the same time, consistently documenting how they went all week long subsequent to the expeditions. How did this happen? Slowly and at my expense and my wife's expense. That's how. We had a lot of help from our members. We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for our members. A few of them, a handful in particular, have stepped up to the plate repeatedly, and I believe will continue to do so because they know me. They know me. They know me. And they know it's a good bet. And that's the truth. And you can ask any one of them if they're in here, and they'll tell you the same thing. Those people will have a lot of credit coming to them when we're done. And when we're done is when I can safely say, holy shit, it's done. What's next? You know what I mean? How are we going to get this to the public? That shot, that experience on film, the traumatic thing. And it'll happen. It would have happened already 3 months ago, third expedition with Scott. If you saw what I saw through that FLIR from 18 feet away, the debate would be over. The ammunition that you need to take anywhere and say, you need to drink a big glass of shuddy. They're selling tickets on the space shuddy, Mr. Skeptic. Put it right on his head. You know what I mean? It already happened. And so we're trying to duplicate that experiment over and over and over. We're going to keep doing the same thing that produced that. That's all you got to do. That's all this is. Who's going to outlast the hominoids in their research area? They got infinite patience. They're adjusted evolutionary. From an evolutionary standpoint, they are adjusted, adapted, and embedded in these environments as comfortable as you are at night in your bed in that perfect 68-degree range. 3 o'clock in the morning, when you wake up, this is how comfortable they are. And you go, wow, oh my God, just right back to bed. Right back to sleep. That's how comfortable they are. They belong there. You don't. We don't. They do. This is happening. And it makes me smile. It does. It does. So I would say, to the extent that we can get out there and get this done, that's how soon it'll happen. And you know, it's extremely hot right now, which has its own data set on what to do, when to go, all of it. When it's extremely hot, I like it, though I hate going out, and Mel doesn't like it. But I know temperature is huge. In this time of year, I can nail them down real easy because it's so friggin' hot. It's so friggin' hot. In the middle of the day, from 11 to 3, that's my favorite time to research data-wise for data retrieval. It's the worst time to be out there. Sometimes you feel like you're going to die. Heat stroke is real. I had one before. It's not nice. So, hey, listen, man, it's going. It's going to go. It's going to continue going. People can say whatever they want about, I don't believe it. I know, dude. I know. Belief is your thing. It's your thing, belief. We're gonna see what works. Data or belief, right? Wasn't there a scientist and a biologist who autopsied and scientifically named like 4 types of Sasquatch? I don't know how many types, but yes, I did a show on it. It's been about 5 years. I did it with Wes when the hoaxed document first came out. I think it's probably real. A lot of the information seems accurate based on what we see. You know what I mean? Imagine how many demons are in gigantic man-eating I don't even understand that. Pete, you're going to have to do better on that one. Come on, buddy. Cell phone or 12-pack? You're going to have to do better. Pete, rephrase that. Pete B. Let's get that going. Or did you? Am I wrong? Am I off here? No. Okay. Weren't Sasquatch listed in the stinking almanac back in the 50s? I think I read that, Ryan R. I think I did. I remember seeing something about it. Whether it was, I think what it is they're not afraid to humorize the topic in that type situation. You know what I mean? And they'll put a nice little piece of, hand drawn kind of thing, and then it'll kind of look goofy, and then they'll make a statement and the perfect terminology to help readers understand that we're not being really serious. This isn't serious. It was a joke. Move on. You know what I mean? In the manual, what was that, 74? Something like that? The National Guard manual? I have that somewhere. Salmon hitting here on the northwest coast of California. The northwest coast. The triangle. That's where you're coming from. Brown D from the triangle. Oh, man. Love those pockets of shade, buddy. So do they. 12 pack. There you go. Just saw it. Hiding with humor. Emerald. That's right. Emerald Triangle. I went to Fort Myers a couple weeks ago, and it was mostly fenced in the way you discussed, with the top barbed wire, I'm assuming, faced in, like you said. And then you put up several years ago. Have you seen this? I've seen this all over the state of Florida. Yeah. I've seen larger fences, 12 foot, with the barbed wire facing in. That's where you want to research. They got a 12-footer in there. They got a 12-foot border fence. Think about that. Coming out of the wilderness to a road, there's a 12-foot border fence with giant swirls of razor wire, not barbed wire, razor wire, bordering a very prominent preserve that I've been in and found tracks. You gotta love it. We asked for a contribution, Rocky. I think it's $9.99. Hey, listen, man, check it out for a month. If you want to stay. This is about contributing. Our members know this is about contributing, man. I look at the situation and it's like this. Anybody that helps us has my gratitude. And we work. I work for my money. You can believe that. The field itself is nuts, and the shit that I go through and that my wife goes through and that we've been through is grounds for lawsuits against somebody. You know what I mean? Not that I would, but it's no joke. It's like real. It's there. And it's shocking every step of the way, every time it happens, All right. Well, look, man, I'm going to get on out here. How much membership we got that? What else we got? Hey, Mark, have you been recognized while out and about from your videos? Yeah, I've been recognized. We have supporters all over the place, man. Banks, stores, convenience stores, neighborhoods. People who live where someone knows me are into it. There's a lot of people, man. A lot of people are interested in this subject and interested in the reality of it. You know what I mean? The subject is interesting, but to get down to the nitty gritty, and I'm going to close with this, right? What are we really dealing with here? I think I even have a couple bullets. So let me take my bullets out here. Yeah. The basics. They're here, man. And they've been here. They're here and they've been here is a basic understanding, right? What are people going to realize to their core when this comes out? What is the base understanding that has to be absorbed in order for any oversight to be provided? Public oversight. And you know what that means. That means, let's get real. We need to have serious discussions about this in the House of Representatives. This is not a joke. You may think it's a joke, but when you see one, you won't. You won't think that anymore. You'll think, whoa, shit, this is serious, and people should know about this. This is not okay. Because that's what it is, right? That's exactly what it is. And skeptics don't know. This is an eyewitness. I'm telling you, if you're watching this right now and you're skeptical, it's because you just don't know. The absence of awareness and the programming that you have received, which could come in many forms, comments, ridiculous, articles on the cover of the National Enquirer, visual representations accompanied with the proper stimulus, making you think this is ridiculous. When in point of fact, if that thing was standing in front of you, as it has in front of me, and tens of thousands of other people who haven't even reported the shit, right? And the thousands you have, to your gut, the thing that is now up in your throat while you're standing there with it, you understand your place, your real place on planet Earth. And that in and of itself, to me, was the single most defining moment of my life, because it showed me what actual human existence, our existence, truly means. And until you have that understanding, you don't know shit. You don't know shit about this planet and what's really going on. And that can offend you all day long. And guess what? I hope it does, because it's the truth. Thanks for coming tonight. I hope we've answered some questions. We're going to do this again, this late night kind of thing. I like it. You know what I mean? I've been working, and we're going to continue working. And we'll see you next time. Get some more questions. Y'all have a good weekend.